Right now, somewhere in the world, there is a physical building. And it's roughly the size of 3 football fields.
Yeah, massive structures.
Exactly. And inside that massive building, you have rows and rows of machines.
Yeah.
Endless racks of them.
And they are consuming more electricity than a small city.
Which is just wild to think about. I mean, they run so incredibly hot that they require these giant industrial cooling systems.
Right, just to stop from literally melting down.
Yeah. And this building, it's not a factory producing cars or steel or anything like that.
No, not at all.
Not a power plant either.
Yeah.
It is, for all practical purposes, a synthetic brain.
That's exactly what it is.
And the country that manages to build the most of these brains, right,
There.
and feed them the most energy is basically going to own the future.
They absolutely will.
So welcome to today's deep dive.
Ah.
We are exploring this profound, really invisible shift happening right across the globe.
It's a massive shift.
Yeah, we are looking at a brand new technology race, and it is centered entirely on artificial intelligence.
Right. And it's a complete shift in how we have to understand global power.
I mean, for a long time, I think most of us, the general public, we've just viewed artificial intelligence as, well, a convenience.
Yeah, like a helpful feature on your phone.
Right. Or, a program that helps you draft an email faster.
Exactly. But the foundation of our research today points to a much more intense reality.
It really does.
Artificial intelligence is no longer just a consumer product. It is rapidly becoming a fundamental measure of pure national power.
And that is the core idea we're going to explore today. We want to show you, our listener, why nations are treating this technology as the most important resource on Earth.
It really is the new baseline.
Yeah. We're going to look at the specific areas of society that this technology transforms. Everything from the economy to the military.
And we'll look at the totally different playbooks being used by the United States, China, and Europe.
Right. Plus, we're going to dive into the massive physical resources required to make all this work. But before we get into all that, we want to make a quick promise to you.
Yes. We want to ensure this remains completely accessible.
Exactly. We are going to keep the language simple.
The concepts we are discussing today, they shape global politics, but the underlying mechanisms are highly logical.
They really are. So no complicated tech jargon.
Right. We will take our time, speak clearly, and focus on how these systems actually function in the real world.
So to start, to understand why a piece of software is now considered a measure of national power, we first have to look at the history of global competition.
We have to look at what countries fought over in the past.
Right, to build their strength. And the historical arenas of competition follow a very clear physical evolution in our sources.
Yeah, the progression is fascinating. It starts with land, then moves to sea power, then industry, oil, nuclear technologies, space technology, and finally, the internet.
Let's unpack that list a bit, because if you look closely at the beginning of that progression, power was entirely physical.
Exactly. It was something you could literally touch and see.
Like land.
Right. Land is the most basic form of power. A nation with vast amounts of land has room for a larger population.
And space to grow massive amounts of food.
Yeah. The sheer physical size of a country gave it an advantage.
Then you move to sea power. Ships.
Which is huge, because if a nation controlled the oceans, they controlled trade.
Right. They could move goods across the globe.
And project their military strength to faraway shores.
So again, highly visible physical power.
Then comes industry, which basically means the ability to manufacture.
Right. A country with advanced factories could build weapons, clothing, and tools faster than anyone else.
But those factories, they needed energy to run.
Which brings us to the next item on the historical list, right? Oil.
Yes. Oil became the ultimate strategic resource because it was the liquid energy that powered those industrial factories.
And the ships at sea.
Exactly.
After oil, the competition became highly scientific. We see nuclear technology and space technology.
Yeah, this was about a nation proving it had the most advanced scientists.
And the most sophisticated engineering capabilities.
Right. And then we reached the internet. And this was a massive transition.
Because the competition shifted, right? From physical resources to digital connections.
Digital connections and information. The internet allowed countries to project economic and cultural influence globally.
Instantly.
Right, instantly. It connected the world's information. And now, following that long evolution from dirt to digital networks, we arrive at the current ultimate competition.
Artificial intelligence.
Exactly.
Okay, but I want to challenge this progression for a moment, because I'm sure you, listening to this, might be wondering the same thing.
Sure, go ahead.
I understand why land and oil are on that list. Land gives a population food, physical shelter. Oil gives a country the energy to heat its homes, run its machines.
They provide tangible survival resources.
Right, so why does artificial intelligence, which is essentially code on a server, deserve to sit on the same historical list as nuclear technology or land?
It's a great question.
And what does it actually give a country?
Well, it provides the ultimate cognitive advantage.
Cognitive advantage.
Right. Artificial intelligence gives a country the ability to improve decision-making, increase productivity, and dramatically reduce the time it takes to complete complex tasks.
Okay, so if past power was about owning the physical body of the world, the land, the factories, the oil, then AI power is about owning the brain of the world.
That is an excellent way to visualize it. It acts as a synthetic brain.
The synthetic brain, I like that.
Think about it. A human brain takes in information, processes it, and makes a decision.
Right.
An artificial intelligence system does the exact same thing. But it processes millions of data points simultaneously.
And makes decisions in milliseconds.
Exactly. So if one nation operates with a faster, more efficient brain than its rivals, it gains an advantage in literally every single action it takes.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense. Which brings us to how this synthetic brain actually works inside a country. Our sources describe AI as a new engine for national development.
And if it is an engine, we need to look at the different parts of the vehicle it is powering.
Exactly. We are going to slowly and deliberately look at several specific sectors of society, as outlined in the research. Let's start with the economy.
The economy is the foundation of national strength.
Always has been.
And our research highlights 4 specific economic areas transformed by this technology.
Okay, what are they?
Helping companies work faster, helping banks detect fraud, helping factories improve production, and helping businesses understand their customers.
Okay, let's take these one by one. Let's focus on that first point, helping companies work faster. On a small scale, that sounds nice for a business owner.
Right, it sounds like a nice perk.
Yeah, but how does that translate to national power?
You have to look at it on a massive scale. Imagine every single business in a nation.
From a small design firm to a massive shipping company.
Exactly. Every day, human workers spend hours on administrative tasks. Organizing schedules, processing paperwork, writing reports.
Just the boring, repetitive stuff.
Right. If artificial intelligence takes over those repetitive tasks, the human workers are suddenly free.
Ah, I see.
They can focus purely on solving complex problems.
And creating new ideas.
Yes. When every company in an entire nation is suddenly producing more value in less time, the overall economic output of the country skyrockets.
And a wealthier country has more resources to build its strength. That makes total sense. Okay, then we have banking and fraud detection.
This is a huge one.
Because global finance relies entirely on trust, right? If people believe their money is constantly being stolen by hidden thieves, they withdraw their funds.
And the economy collapses.
Exactly. So how does AI change this?
Well, in the past, banks relied on human investigators to look for suspicious activity.
Which is just incredibly slow.
Right. A human can only look at a few accounts an hour, but an artificial intelligence system can monitor millions of global financial transactions every single second.
Millions. Every second.
It looks for tiny, almost invisible patterns of theft that a human would never, ever notice.
And it instantly blocks those fraudulent transactions.
Keeping the entire national financial system secure and stable.
Okay, so that covers speed and security. The economic engine also includes factories improving production and businesses understanding customers.
Let's talk about the factories.
Yeah, how does that work?
In a factory setting, an artificial intelligence system can analyze the machinery and calculate the absolute most efficient way to build a product.
Like figuring out how to cut materials with zero waste.
Exactly. Zero wasted materials. And when it comes to understanding customers, businesses used to just, guess what people wanted to buy.
Yeah, lots of trial and error.
But now the technology analyzes the purchasing habits of millions of people to predict exactly what products are needed.
So if a nation's businesses know exactly what to produce and their factories produce it with perfect efficiency,
they outcompete the rest of the world.
It's just a compounding advantage.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to the next sector, which I find truly fascinating. Education.
Yes, this is a critical sector.
The sources outline that artificial intelligence can act as a personal tutor, explain difficult ideas, create custom quizzes, and assist teachers in preparing their lessons.
The concept of the personal tutor is totally revolutionary.
Let's break that down. In traditional education, you have one teacher standing in front of 30 students.
And the teacher must teach at an average pace.
Right, so the advanced students get bored and the struggling students fall behind.
Exactly. A human tutor sitting one-on-one with a student is honestly the best way to learn.
But it is far too expensive for most families.
Right. But if an artificial intelligence system acts as a personalized tutor on a standard tablet or computer, the cost drops to almost nothing.
That's incredible. Every single student, regardless of their family's wealth, gets dedicated, individualized instruction.
Yes. Think about it. If a student does not understand a complex math concept, the system does not get frustrated.
Unlike a tired human might.
Right. It just tries explaining the difficult idea using a completely different method.
It generates specific quizzes to test if the student truly understands.
And it adapts its teaching style in real time.
And at the same time, this relieves the burden on the human teacher.
Right. Oh, massively. Instead of spending 5 hours every night planning lessons and grading papers, the AI system prepares the materials.
So the human teacher can then focus entirely on mentoring the students.
And providing emotional support.
Now, I want you to think about this for a second, the geopolitical implications of this.
It's staggering.
Imagine two competing nations. One nation uses this technology, providing a brilliant personalized AI tutor to every single child within its borders.
And the other nation does not.
Right. Within one single generation, how massive is that advantage?
It's uncatchable. The first nation will graduate a workforce that is significantly more capable, more analytical, and more innovative.
That intellectual advantage is pure national power.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we see a similar massive advantage in the healthcare sector.
Yes, healthcare is being completely transformed.
According to the text, the technology is used to read medical images, analyze massive amounts of patient data, and discover new drugs.
Let's look at medical imaging first, like X-rays or MRI scans.
Okay. Radiologists are highly trained doctors, obviously.
But they are human.
Right.
They experience visual fatigue after looking at hundreds of scans.
They get tired, they miss things.
Exactly. An artificial intelligence system trained on millions of medical images never gets tired.
Right.
It can detect a cluster of anomalous cells, like an early sign of disease that is just too small for the human eye to catch.
And catching disease early saves lives. But from a national perspective, it also saves the nation billions of dollars in long-term medical treatments.
Yes. A healthy population is a productive population.
That makes sense. But the drug discovery aspect, the text suggests that's perhaps even more critical for national power.
It is. Because developing a new medicine traditionally takes human scientists a decade or more.
A decade?
Easily. They have to physically synthesize and test thousands of chemical compounds in a laboratory just to see how they react.
It is a slow, incredibly expensive process of trial and error.
But the synthetic brain changes that process entirely.
How so?
It can digitally simulate how millions of different chemical structures will interact with human biology.
Without having to physically mix them in a lab.
Exactly. It predicts which compounds will work as a medicine before a physical chemical is ever mixed.
Wow. So this dramatically reduces the time required to bring life-saving drugs to the market.
Dramatically.
Which leads right into the science sector. Because modern science generates staggering amounts of data.
It really does. Whether scientists are mapping the ocean floor, tracking climate changes, or observing distant galaxies.
They collect more raw data than a human team could analyze in a lifetime.
Right. And the primary function of artificial intelligence in science is finding hidden patterns in all that data.
Because humans are pattern-seeking creatures, but we are limited.
Exactly. We cannot look at a spreadsheet with a billion rows and spot a trend.
But the technology can process that vast ocean of data and instantly highlight the connections.
Which means scientific breakthroughs happen at a vastly accelerated rate.
And scientific supremacy directly feeds into the most serious sector we must discuss today, the military.
Yes, this is a very heavy topic.
The sources explicitly detail how this technology supports drones, unmanned systems, cybersecurity, intelligence analysis, and logistics.
Let's examine drones and unmanned systems first.
Okay. These are vehicles, aircraft, or naval vessels operating without human crews inside them.
Right. The artificial intelligence essentially acts as the pilot.
So it's constantly processing environmental sensors.
Avoiding obstacles, making complex navigational decisions in real time.
And this allows a military to project force without placing human soldiers in direct physical danger.
Exactly. It's a huge advantage.
It also provides an invisible shield through cybersecurity.
Yes. Just as the technology monitors banks for financial fraud, it constantly monitors a nation's defense networks.
So it watches for those microscopic anomalies that signal a cyber attack from a foreign adversary.
Right. Blocking the intrusion before human operators even know it is happening.
Then there is intelligence analysis, which I imagine deals with a lot of data.
An unbelievable amount. Modern militaries intercept millions of communications, satellite images, and radar signals every single day.
The human intelligence team simply cannot review all of it.
They can't. But the artificial intelligence system can instantly translate intercepted languages, scan satellite photos from moving vehicles, and flag only the most critical threats.
So the human commanders only have to review the important stuff.
Exactly.
Now, there is one element in the military list that might sound mundane compared to autonomous drones, but the text says it is absolutely critical.
Logistics.
Yes, logistics.
Logistics is the science of moving personnel, equipment, fuel, and food.
It is widely considered the hardest part of any military operation.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. An armored division is completely useless if it runs out of fuel.
Right. You can have the best tanks in the world, but if they can't move.
Exactly. A massive military force requires thousands of supply trucks moving constantly through changing weather and hostile environments.
And an artificial intelligence system can monitor the location of every single vehicle.
Calculate weather patterns, track fuel consumption rates, and instantly reroute supply lines to ensure the military never stalls.
So having perfect logistics is an overwhelming military advantage.
It wins conflicts.
Finally, the same principles apply to the general industry sector. The sources mention robotics, automation, quality control, and supply chain management.
Right. We are talking about machines doing the physical labor, but now they have the cognitive ability to adapt.
Right, because if a product on an assembly line is slightly misaligned, an older robot would just crush it.
Exactly. It wouldn't know any better. But an artificial intelligence-driven robot senses the error. It adjusts its grip and continues working.
And the quality control cameras can instantly spot a millimeter-wide scratch on a finished product, ensuring perfect manufacturing.
So when you combine all of these sectors, the economy, education, healthcare, science, the military, and industry, you start to see the full picture.
You really do.
A clear warning emerges directly from this analysis.
Oh, yes. Nations that lead in the development of artificial intelligence will become vastly stronger economically, scientifically, and militarily.
And nations that fail to adopt this technology will face severe, perhaps insurmountable, disadvantages.
That's the harsh reality of it.
Because if an opposing nation has smarter students, healthier citizens, perfectly efficient factories, and a military driven by instant data analysis,
competing against them becomes nearly impossible.
it's a new engine of development, and falling behind means losing your position on the global stage.
And because the stakes are so incredibly high, different regions of the world are desperately building their own AI engines.
Right. However, they are not building them in the same way.
Not at all.
Our sources outline 3 distinct playbooks being used by the major global players: the United States, China, and Europe.
And we are going to explore these 3 strategies precisely as they are presented in the research.
Yes, and it is vital to state clearly to you, the listener, that we are impartially analyzing the strategic strengths identified in these materials.
We are not endorsing any political ideology.
We are not declaring any strategy as the winner or superior.
We are simply observing how different nations leverage their own unique cultural and economic resources.
Exactly. So let us begin with the United States.
Okay.
The core strength of the U.S. playbook is pure innovation.
Yes. The environment there is heavily defined by leading technology companies, top-tier universities, world-class research laboratories, and a deeply ingrained startup culture.
So the environment in the U.S. basically operates like a high-speed pipeline for brand new concepts.
Right. The process often starts in a university research lab, where scientists develop a completely novel, untested idea.
But an idea alone does not change the world. It needs to be built.
And this is where the powerful capital markets of the United States come into play.
Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. There is a massive ecosystem of investors willing to take enormous financial risks.
Okay.
If someone has a theoretical concept for a new artificial intelligence system, they can raise millions of dollars from these investors very quickly.
So they take that investment, start a new company, a startup, hire the best engineers, and just race to build a working product.
Exactly. The entire culture encourages moving fast, taking risks, and trying to create something that has never existed before.
The U.S. strategy thrives on being the birthplace of the initial invention.
Now, China utilizes a completely different strategy.
Right, the text contrasts them heavily.
Yes. While the U.S. focuses heavily on initial innovation, China's massive strength lies in application and scale.
Application and scale, meaning what exactly?
They excel at taking an existing technology and deploying it into the real physical world faster and wider than anyone else.
So their structural advantages are a massive domestic market, a vast number of engineers, and an unparalleled manufacturing base.
Right. China does not just write software, they build the physical objects the software controls.
Our sources highlight specific application scenarios where this strategy dominates.
Like factories, logistics networks, e-commerce, smart cities, and electric vehicles.
So when a new artificial intelligence capability is developed, the Chinese ecosystem can instantly manufacture millions of electric vehicles equipped with that technology.
Exactly. They integrate the technology directly into the infrastructure of smart cities, using it to optimize traffic lights and manage public transportation.
They apply it heavily to e-commerce, too, managing complex delivery logistics across a massive geographic area.
Right. The strategy here is not necessarily to invent the algorithm first, but to be the absolute best at making that algorithm operate in the physical world on an industrial scale.
Okay, that makes sense. Then we must examine Europe.
The European playbook takes a highly protective approach.
Their defined strengths are regulation, ethics, privacy protection, human rights, and scientific research.
Now, when some people hear the word regulation, they assume it just means creating unnecessary rules that slow down technological progress.
Yeah, that's a common assumption.
But the analysis presents this as a distinct competitive strength.
It is a strength because of the issue of trust, right?
Exactly. We just discussed how artificial intelligence will manage banking systems, read personal medical records, and control military drones.
This technology holds immense power.
And if the public believes that this power will be used to steal their private data or violate their human rights,
They will reject the technology entirely.
right. So Europe's strategy is to act as the global guardian of safety.
They're focused on building strict legal frameworks, ensuring that artificial intelligence is trustworthy, responsible, and safe.
By demanding that developers respect privacy and ethical boundaries, Europe ensures long-term stability.
Because a safe, trusted system is ultimately more valuable than a fast, reckless system that causes harm.
That's the argument, yes.
What is truly insightful about the analysis of these three playbooks is the conclusion that none of them exist in total isolation.
Right. They all interact. Different regions aggressively compete, but they also learn from each other.
Like, if you think about the ultimate ideal artificial intelligence system, it requires elements from all three regions.
Yes. It must feature the groundbreaking innovations seen in the United States.
It must be able to scale and operate flawlessly in the physical world, like the systems deployed in China.
And it absolutely must be safe, ethical, and protective of privacy, which is the standard set by Europe.
So all three regions are driving the global development forward by pushing their specific advantages to the absolute limit.
That's a great summary.
Up until this point, we have been talking about artificial intelligence as if it were an invisible spirit living in the clouds.
Right, like it's just pure thought.
Yeah. We have talked about software, algorithms, and legal regulations. But software cannot exist without hardware.
No, it cannot.
This brings us to the physical reality of the technology race. You simply cannot build artificial intelligence out of thin air.
It requires massive, heavy, physical machinery.
And this is a critical transition in our understanding of the text.
Yes. Training a large AI model requires advanced chips, immense data centers, massive amounts of electricity, and sophisticated cooling systems.
The digital brain needs a physical body to survive.
It really does.
Let's start with the most important physical component, the advanced chips.
Okay. A standard computer chip, like the one in your laptop, processes basic information.
Right.
But to train an artificial intelligence model to read medical scans or pilot drones, you need specialized, highly complex hardware.
Hardware capable of performing billions of calculations simultaneously.
Exactly.
The materials provide a brilliant analogy to help visualize this dependency.
Oh, I love this analogy.
If the artificial intelligence software is the brain, then the advanced chips are the muscles and the energy system that physically allow the brain to do the heavy lifting.
The software is completely helpless without the hardware.
And our sources explicitly name the key companies responsible for designing these physical muscles: NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel.
Yes. The companies capable of designing these incredibly dense, complex chips hold a staggering amount of power in the global technology race.
Without their physical hardware, development completely stalls.
But you do not just need one chip.
No.
To build a nation-level system, you need hundreds of thousands of these advanced chips working perfectly in unison.
And you cannot just put them in a standard office building.
No, they must be housed in large data centers.
Like we mentioned at the start of the deep dive. When we talk about a data center, we are describing vast physical warehouses filled with endless rows of servers.
These are the modern factories of the digital age. They exist in the physical world, taking up massive amounts of land.
And when hundreds of thousands of advanced chips are calculating billions of mathematical operations every single second, they generate an astronomical amount of physical heat.
Extreme heat. If left alone, the machines would literally melt themselves into slag.
Therefore, these massive facilities require industrial-scale cooling systems.
Constantly pumping chilled water or air through the server racks just to keep the machines alive.
And all of this physical activity requires something else.
Electricity. A staggering amount of it.
The energy requirement is perhaps the most critical physical constraint of all.
Every single time a user asks an AI tutor a math question or an AI camera inspects a factory product, physical electricity must be consumed in a data center to calculate the answer.
The sources make a direct, profound comparison here. In the previous era of global competition, oil was the ultimate strategic resource.
Nations fought wars to secure oil to run their physical factories.
But today, computing power itself is becoming that strategic resource.
And that changes the geopolitical map entirely.
Think about it. Have you ever thought about how much electricity it takes just to ask an AI a question?
Most people haven't.
If computing power is the new oil, what happens if a country runs out of the energy needed to power its muscles?
Well, their artificial intelligence engine simply shuts off.
Even if they have the best software engineers in the world.
Even if they have the best educational system, if their national energy grid cannot generate enough stable electricity, they lose.
It is a sobering reality. In the future, the global competition will not just be about software code.
No, nations will fiercely compete for physical chips, the materials to build data centers, and the raw energy required to run the AI infrastructure.
So, we have established the need for brilliant software, specialized chips, and massive energy grids.
But a data center does not build itself.
Right. Microchip does not design itself.
Which brings us to the ultimate foundational element of this global race: human beings.
The race for artificial intelligence is fundamentally a war for human talent.
Yes, the machines are only as capable as the minds that create them.
And the sources provide a list of the specific professionals required to build this ecosystem, and the variety is deeply revealing.
It is. The list includes computer scientists, data scientists, engineers, mathematicians, chip designers, product managers, entrepreneurs, and teachers.
Notice that it is not simply a list of people who know how to type code.
Let's examine why these different disciplines are required.
Okay, let's start with mathematicians.
Artificial intelligence is not magic. It is extremely complex probability and statistics.
So long before a computer scientist writes a line of code, mathematicians must invent the theoretical formulas that allow a machine to learn from data.
Exactly. Then the computer scientists and engineers build the systems based on that math.
And the chip designers create the physical hardware that can process those specific formulas.
But the technology also needs people who understand human behavior.
Right. That is why product managers and entrepreneurs are on the list.
A brilliant algorithm sitting on a server is useless to the general public.
An entrepreneur must build a business structure to support it.
And a product manager must design an interface that makes the complex technology easy for a regular person to use.
And what about the teachers? The inclusion of teachers is equally vital.
Yes. If we want artificial intelligence to act as a personal tutor, the machine needs to understand pedagogy.
The science of how human beings actually absorb information.
Right. Human teachers must guide the engineers in training the systems to interact effectively with students.
So because it requires such a vast array of specialized human minds, nations are engaged in an intense global competition to attract the smartest people on Earth.
Universities, private companies, and research laboratories are constantly fighting to hire top talent.
This competition drives a massive global migration of intelligence. The materials heavily emphasize the role of international students in this dynamic.
Young, brilliant minds travel across the globe to study advanced technology in foreign universities.
And what happens after they graduate shapes the balance of global power.
It really does. If an international student studies advanced engineering and then decides to stay in that host country to work or found a startup company.
They add their intellectual weight to that nation's AI engine.
Exactly. A country that welcomes global talent, providing a vibrant and supportive environment, acts like a magnet for human intelligence.
They draw the best minds away from other regions, accelerating their own innovation.
Conversely, a nation that isolates itself and fails to attract or retain these brilliant individuals will slowly lose its competitive edge.
But relying solely on importing talent from other countries is not a sustainable strategy either.
No, a nation must also cultivate its own internal resources.
Which leads to a profound shift in how a country views its own school systems.
The educational curriculum must change to meet the demands of the technology race.
The sources outline that students must be taught math, coding, data science, critical thinking, communication, and AI literacy.
Critical thinking and AI literacy are especially important.
Why is that?
Because if an entire generation grows up blindly trusting whatever an artificial intelligence system tells them, the nation becomes incredibly vulnerable to errors or manipulation.
Right. Students must be taught how the technology works, its limitations, and how to rigorously analyze the information it produces.
This dynamic fundamentally changes the purpose of education.
Teaching young students advanced mathematics is no longer just about preparing them for the job market.
It becomes a matter of national defense and strategic survival.
As the sources state clearly, in the AI era, education becomes part of national strategy.
It's a huge paradigm shift.
So, we have built a comprehensive picture of a world locked in an intense struggle.
Nations are fiercely competing for economic dominance, military supremacy, advanced hardware, massive energy resources, and the smartest human minds on the planet.
When you place all of those high-stakes competitions into a single arena, a vital question emerges.
It is the ultimate question regarding our future.
Will the development of artificial intelligence drive humanity toward deeper conflict, or will it force us into unprecedented cooperation?
The research carefully examines the strong forces pulling in both directions.
Let's begin by examining the dark side of the equation. The factors driving nations toward conflict.
Okay. The sheer magnitude of what is at stake creates a volatile environment.
Because we have already established that nations are competing for technology leadership, economic advantage, and military strength.
Right. And the root cause of the tension is a profound lack of trust.
Explain that.
Well, every nation understands how powerful this synthetic brain is. When one nation observes a rival building massive data centers and stockpiling advanced chips, they do not know what the rival intends to do with that power.
Right. The sources list specific fears that generate this mistrust.
Yes, nations worry that adversaries will use artificial intelligence for aggressive cyber attacks.
Disabling critical infrastructure or banking systems from thousands of miles away.
They worry about mass surveillance, where the technology is used to monitor and control populations.
There is intense anxiety regarding autonomous weapons, too.
Military drones or systems empowered to identify and attack targets without human intervention.
There is also the threat of misinformation.
That's a huge one. This refers to the ability of artificial intelligence to instantly generate thousands of fake news articles, manipulated photographs, or deceptive videos.
Right. If a rival nation uses this capability to flood another country with false information, it can manipulate public opinion and create political chaos.
And because nations harbor these deep suspicions about how their rivals will weaponize the technology, they become highly defensive.
They close their borders to technology sharing, hoard resources, and accelerate their own military programs.
This cycle of mistrust heavily increases the risk of global conflict.
However, the research reveals a fascinating paradox.
It does. The very same technology that drives nations to compete also creates vulnerabilities that no single nation can defend against alone.
And this is the force driving cooperation.
Yes. The core reality is that artificial intelligence risks are inherently global.
They do not respect physical borders.
Let's go back to the threat of misinformation we just discussed. If an adversary generates a massive wave of highly convincing, fake digital content, that content spreads across the global internet instantly.
Right. A government cannot build a physical wall to stop a digital broadcast.
We can look at this through a comparison to environmental pollution.
If a factory burns highly toxic chemicals, The polluted smoke does not stay within the borders of that country.
Exactly. The wind inevitably carries the toxic air into neighboring nations.
So artificial intelligence risks operate like a digital wind.
Yes. If an autonomous weapon malfunctions, or if a highly advanced cyber attack spreads out of control, the catastrophic impact will ripple across international borders.
Because the dangers are borderless, the solutions must also be borderless.
This forces competing nations to the negotiating table.
The analysis states explicitly that the world needs shared rules, universal safety standards, ethical guidelines, and binding agreements on the dangerous uses of artificial intelligence.
Because if the nations of the world refuse to communicate, the technology will evolve in a chaotic, unregulated environment.
Leaving everyone vulnerable to a sudden catastrophe.
Therefore, despite the intense economic and military rivalry, establishing a baseline of international cooperation is an absolute necessity for mutual survival.
This complex dynamic reframes the entire global race. For a long time, observers have only focused on a single question: which country will ultimately win the AI race?
But the research suggests that is the wrong question to ask.
The much bigger, far more critical question is, how can humanity use AI safely and responsibly?
It shifts the focus away from pure dominance and toward collective preservation.
This brings us to the concluding philosophy of the materials we have explored. It serves as a synthesis of everything we have discussed regarding the shifting balance of power.
We have covered a lot. We have traced how artificial intelligence evolved from a simple tool into the new engine of national development.
We explored how it revolutionizes the economy through efficiency and fraud prevention.
How it transforms education with personalized tutors.
How it accelerates medical drug discovery.
And how it provides perfect logistical analysis for the military.
We analyzed the differing strategies shaping the world. The United States driving rapid innovation through risk and capital.
China deploying technology on a massive physical scale through robust manufacturing.
Europe prioritizing long-term stability by enforcing strict ethical and safety regulations.
We examined the physical reality of the race, recognizing that without advanced chips, massive data centers, and massive amounts of electricity, the digital brain simply cannot function.
Computing power has become the new oil,
And we recognize that human intelligence is the foundation of it all.
leading to a global war for talent and forcing nations to elevate their educational systems as a matter of strategic defense.
Finally, we saw the incredible tension between the mistrust driving nations toward conflict and the borderless digital risks forcing them to cooperate.
The concluding message of our source material is a warning against losing perspective.
The author of the analysis argues that if nations become entirely consumed with winning the competition, they will inevitably sacrifice safety, fairness, and human values in the pursuit of speed.
The best possible future is not a world where the technology is solely used as a weapon for dominance.
No, the ideal future is one where the immense power of the synthetic brain is directed toward elevating humanity.
A world where the technology helps doctors eradicate disease faster, helps farmers optimize food production to eliminate hunger, and monitors the environment to protect natural resources.
It demands a highly delicate balance. Nations will undoubtedly continue to compete fiercely in innovation.
But they must simultaneously cooperate deeply on safety protocols.
Achieving that balance will dictate the stability of the coming century.
It is a massive challenge for global leadership. Before we end today's deep dive, I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to mull over.
Yes.
We spent a lot of time discussing how the risks of artificial intelligence, like digital misinformation, cross borders like the wind.
Right.
And we also examined how the United States, China, and Europe have developed completely different playbooks, heavily influenced by their own unique cultural priorities regarding speed, scale, and ethics.
Those differing priorities will eventually collide.
Exactly. So here's something for you to think about as you watch this race unfold. As these major powers race to build incredibly powerful artificial intelligence systems, they are inevitably training those systems based on their own unique cultural rules and values.
Yes.
What happens when an artificial intelligence trained to prioritize absolute speed and innovation has to interact in a global, borderless network with an artificial intelligence trained to prioritize strict regulation and privacy?
It's a fascinating dilemma.
If the digital wind blows across all borders, whose set of rules will ultimately protect us?
It is a profoundly difficult question that the world will have to answer very soon.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the invisible race shaping our world. Keep analyzing the information around you, keep questioning how these systems work, and we will catch you next time.